Oi, what's the best game where you get to eat pie? What's the best game where you play a dead guy? Aye, you'll find out in VG247's podcast. Here, what's the best game where you swing from a roof? And what's the best game where you batter the Pope? Assassin's Creed 2. Like I said, you will find out in this here podcast.
Hello and welcome to VG247's Best Games Ever podcast, where we attempt to find the best game within an extremely specific category that we've made up for SEO purposes or just for our own egos. For example, a couple of weeks ago, we were looking for the best game with a Welsh actor in it, and that was a topic that I came up with because I'm Welsh and kind of an actor, and I've been in a couple of games this year, and I was hoping somebody would pick couple of the games that I'd been in, but they just didn't come up in conversation, Tom. But I'm joined today by Tom Ori and nobody else, because this is a special episode where
celebrating me. Is that right? This is my life.
Celebrating Tom Ori's life and career. No, we're celebrating. We've hit, is it 6 months? Is it 6 months?
It's 6 months.
Yeah, so we've done 26 main episodes of the podcast, also a live podcast, which whether or not it counts as one of the episodes is up for debate. I'm sure we're going to get into that later. But we thought because we're getting to the end of the year, it would be a nice moment to just have a look at how the podcast has progressed over the half year that we've been doing it. And we've got quite a few games now in what I'm going to start calling VG247's official list of best games ever in these dubious categories. So should we just go through them one by one, Tom? Do we just take a trip down memory lane?
I don't know how else we would do it. I mean, one by one.
That's also a good point.
I mean, that seems like the sensible way of doing it. I just want to pick up on your Welsh actor thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
When you talk to people outside of games,
right,
like the normal people,
yeah.
Do you go, "Hi, I'm Jim. I'm a Welsh actor"?
I don't ever introduce myself to anyone.
This is all just a bit, right? For Twitter and social media and stuff. This
well, you mean
Welsh
like if
thing.
I was at some sort of like, if I was in the pub with my wife's friends and they asked me what I did for a living?
Yeah.
I wouldn't describe myself as a Welsh actor, no.
So
But I feel like I'm a Welsh actor in my heart.
Okay. Well, I'm a professional footballer and snooker player.
Yeah, but have you ever played football or snooker professionally?
I played snooker at an amateur level, which was good at the time.
Is that not the opposite of doing it professionally?
Well, I won trophies. I didn't get any money from it, I suppose.
All right, so that's right. Okay, but that's still not professional,
I can
is it?
still go around calling myself a professional snooker player. I mean, who's going to question it?
No, well, yeah, but the thing is, I have earned money by being an actor in video games. I've literally done that.
Does that count? Does that actually count, though? I mean,
I've done it twice.
Video games, not films, is it?
Yeah, well, yeah, but they're more prestigious than films these days, aren't they? Can you argue that? No, you absolutely can't argue that, can you? No, look, it's a fair point, right? But I have earned money doing acting, and specifically Welsh acting in one case, and I am aware. So I feel like there's a couple of things that I aspire to be in life, and one of them is a Welsh actor. I think I've done that, got that nailed. And the other thing is to be an Italian pensioner who spends his time picking tomatoes, and that
feels more achievable.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I just need to get old. Right, listen. None of this is all nonsense. But right, so going back to the first ever episode of this podcast, what we recorded,
a good time, wasn't it? I remember that fondly.
It was May 27th this year, so it was a while back. And the topic was best game with a named horse. Do you remember what won that?
Yeah, I did. I won that.
Yeah. You won it with Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah, I mean, back when I took things seriously.
Yeah, I think, I think that's a really, that is a solid, I think I would still stand by that pick.
And it was like, I want to make a statement in that first show.
Yeah.
Like, that you shouldn't mess with me in terms of my choices. And I mean, there was no other option. I can't remember how everyone else picked. It was probably some bollocks.
Alex picked a weird kind of Namco
that arcade
horsey game,
oh, right,
and where like technically all the horses had names, so he was like, "Look, this is sure to win," and it was just, and I
bet had that episode been this week, he'd have won. You'd have picked that this week.
No, I wouldn't have.
Yes, you would have.
No, I wouldn't
changed. You've changed the way you judge things.
I absolutely stand by Shadow of the Colossus. I still stand by Shadow of the Colossus because it was definitely the best. I mean, Durrani had Elden Ring, which I felt was maybe a bit too recent.
Yeah, I mean, that's just latching onto the popular thing, right? I mean,
yeah. But so you had a really strong start, but it quickly fell apart, didn't it, Tom?
Well,
it was another 8 weeks before you had a win.
I mean, I think if we look at the actual games in each of the shows, I think you can probably see that there's been some, well, I don't want to say unfairness, but certainly some...
Unfairness?
Some quite blinkered eyes in terms of like...
Blinkered? What do you mean? What do you mean? Explain yourself immediately.
I've had many messages from people saying that I was robbed. I was robbed.
You've had one tweet. You had one tweet from James Batchelor saying that you were robbed on one episode.
He said things to me. Other people outside of the company have messaged me.
This is rubbish. This is Trumpian. Many people have not messaged you about how you were robbed every week.
Every week, there's always someone that says, Tom, I listened and you were robbed. That's what people say. I mean...
Which people?
But I can't name them because they messaged me privately. I'm not going to reveal who they are.
You can't reveal your sources. All right, okay. Episode 2, Dom won on his one and only appearance so far with Pokemon Conquest for the best game that nobody cares about. I
mean, I really do not care about that. So that is a good pick. But I can't remember what I picked. Can you remember?
I could probably get it up, couldn't I? Hang on. So let's have
I should have written these things down before.
Yeah. You picked Quantum Break for that one.
I think that is a good choice.
Yeah, but no, because we all know that Josh West cares about it deeply.
Yeah, but this was back in a time when the podcast mentioned Josh West every week, right? And I think at some point I may have messaged you saying, let's stop talking about Josh West because no one knows who he is outside of this little sphere.
Yeah, it's a bit inside baseball, isn't it?
Yeah, but realistically, that is a good choice that got so, like, Pokemon. I mean, the winning game was a Pokemon game.
It's
right?
not even...
Pokemon. The one at the moment, like, the latest Pokemon game is the best-selling game of the year, best-selling Pokemon game ever.
Yeah, but nobody remembers Pokemon Conquest.
It doesn't matter, it's called Pokemon, right? People were so sort of keen to say how much little they cared about Quantum Break.
Yeah, but this is got the name wrong. What? You picking Quantum Leap?
Quantum Leap.
You picking Quantum Break is a recurring theme because I'm pretty sure you've tried to slip it in a couple of times.
It's the perfect game for like having shit thrown at it because it's a good game that everyone was down on because it was on an Xbox. That is the facts about it.
That is true. I would agree with you there. All right. Well, yeah, Dom on his one and only appearance, winning in the second week is, that's quite a statement as well. And then just never appearing on the podcast ever again.
That's it. Never coming
one and done.
Again.
He can basically claim that undefeated forevermore. Although Dom is on the podcast in the coming weeks, so there's going to be a triumphant return. It's going to be like when Dwayne Johnson goes back to WWE, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be exactly like that. All right, so on episode 3, best game with a mini game better than the main game.
This was bollocks. This episode,
you were
unbelievable.
Kelsey won that with New Super Mario Brothers Wii. I don't understand what's the problem with that choice. Because
those mini games weren't that good. Certainly not better than the main game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just a fact.
All right, actually, yeah. Looking at it now, I think... but Alex tried to slip Shenmue in there.
Well, that is nonsense, because, I mean, that kind of works because Shenmue
Yeah.
is terrible, right? So a mini game is a high chance of being better
Yeah.
than the main game.
All right. I'll
But
tell you.
it's not the best game because Shenmue is terrible, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult topic to read. But look, New Super Mario Bros. Wii is clearly like the best game on that list.
shall I admit, I can't actually remember what game I picked. Even though
Burnout 2 Point of
there we
Impact.
go. There we go. Crash mode, right? And I know it's a mode, like I think it's the best choice by a mile.
Yeah.
It spawned its own spin-off game. It was a big focus of future games.
Yeah.
Like it was the thing that if you played Burnout and Burnout 2 and 3, it's crash mode is like the thing you remember mostly for those games. So I mean that I think I definitely got messaged after that episode and was like the people at Criterion were messaging me and like
Really?
all of the people that worked there at the time messaged me individually
All right.
and said that I was wronged.
Well, you can't argue with the next one. Episode 4, best game with a pub. And Alex
I can argue with this.
You can argue. Alex won with The Secret of Monkey Island. The Scum Bar is the quintessential video game pub.
But point and clicks are boring, right?
No, they're not boring, Tom. And there was a sequel to Monkey Island that came out literally a month ago, and it was brilliant, and everyone loved it. And it's a beloved series. Well, yeah, but I mean, it's because at the time you were cleaning pubs because you were a 9.
That's true. I mean, that is probably true. I mean, I was trying to save up money to buy something that could play Monkey Island.
Yeah,
Never got there.
So maybe you just weren't on your A game for that episode because of all the trauma associated with having to clean pubs from such a young age.
I didn't get any extra credit for that, though, did I?
But you picked Prey 2006, which was a bar, not a pub.
Good game, and it was a pub. It was a definite pub.
Yeah, I mean, Connor picked Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, which the
most boring
best
game of all time.
The most boring game of all time. But the best thing about the pub in that game is that it's empty. Moving on, episode 5, best game you got for an odd reason. But by the way, once we've done this rundown, we're going to have a look at who's winning. We're going to have a look at the league table, which I don't think is going to surprise anyone. But right, best game you got for an odd reason.
This was a good episode, I think.
It was a really good episode, yeah. And we started dipping into the lore, the ongoing kind of lore of like, well, firstly, you sort of being given games by mysterious benefactors and having to clean pubs as a 6-year-old or whatever.
Yeah.
And also the lore of Alex growing up in crime-infested Birmingham.
Yeah. And James just like a fairly kind of low-key odd story about something. Like he got something, he got Metal Gear from a library. Was that this one?
Yeah.
I mean, I think at the time the story was a bit more exciting than that, but essentially he just borrowed a game from a library, right? Is that what happened?
Yeah, it was a very James Billcliffe story, I believe. I think it's but in the latest episode, James revealed that him and his wife are like workshopping his choices now because they've figured out that I pick things on sentimental grounds more often than not.
Bit desperate, I think.
I mean, it revealed something about me that I hadn't realised. But yeah, Alex won that with Perfect Dark because
I think that's probably fair enough. Actually,
I mean, Perfect Dark.
I picked a point and click, right? And I've just said they are boring games. So
yeah, you picked Sam & Max, which is the worst LucasArts game in my view. But I'm going to get letters about that. All right, episode 6, best game someone not in the know would think you made up. Alex picked Katamari Damacy and won with that, which I think was a fair enough pick. But you picked Mount Your Friends, which is also also a good one.
Oh, this is another one I got messages about because I mean clearly Katamari Damacy is like it's just so video gamey.
Did you get messages about it, or are these phantom messages that you've missed?
Messages, maybe messages is pushing it.
Did you get one message from James Batchelor again? Is that?
I can't remember if it was James. James is a big fan of the show, so does tweets about it. I like the fact he does original tweets.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's gone now. Twitter's basically falling, but I like the fact that people tweet about the podcast and don't just reply. They do original posts saying how good it is. That's the perfect way to promote.
I also appreciate this from James. Yeah.
Another good way of promoting the podcast, Jim, is if you like this show, you leave a review on your platform of choice. So if it's Apple Podcasts, whatever it's called, write a little review, 5 stars, obviously, and write something nice as the review. Like Tom is brilliant.
You have to put 5 stars, otherwise the podcast will disappear. So it has to be 5 stars, and you also have to say something nice along the lines of Jim's a brilliant host. Imagine having to pick some kind of winner out of the absolute slop that people come to you every week, etc. I don't know how you do it. You're brilliant. That sort of thing. Or
like if you believe it, something like Better Than Eurogamer's podcast. For example, just I mean, I'm not put words into people's mouths or onto their keyboards.
Look, we're not saying our podcast is better than Eurogamers. We're just saying you might think that and want to express it.
If you believe it, if you think Eurogamers is great, go and leave a review for whatever podcast they do. They've got a few. I've lost track of them.
But you can be a bit more discerning if you're reviewing, because Eurogamer are all about journalistic integrity. You can be a bit more discerning with theirs and just like give them 3 stars, just for balance. But with ours, you have to give it 5.
It adds to the whole. Like, it plays into the comedy element of the show, is that this level of podcast is on 5 stars, right?
All right. Moving on. Episode 7, the best game you wanted as a child but never got. Now, Kelsey won this with Silent Hills.
This is also not nonsense.
Playable teaser. Now, look. It's right. My reason for picking Kelsey's, firstly, Silent Hills PT, even though it was just a demo for a game that never got made, essentially. Well, not even a demo, just like an advert for a game. It was still one of the best horror games ever made, and people still talk about it with great reverence to this day. So I thought that was a great pick. But I was really... It made me realize how old I was this episode. Because, like, I'm pretty sure that I was in my 30s when PC came out. I was working for you, right?
I was, because I, at the time, I think my son had just been born. Who is now 9. And I was playing this we were living with my mother-in-law at the time. And we were all in one room, my son asleep, my wife asleep. And it was one of those games on the PlayStation 4 that the noise blurted out of the DualShock.
Okay, And
I was like, fuck's sake, this is the worst timing for this to happen. Because it came out quite late, I think, and it was just because it was after like it was
after some sort
and
of
then the demo was
showcase,
available. And I was like, I've got to play this quickly because everyone's gone on about it. And it was just blurting the noise out at like whatever time at night, and that was So for that reason, I hate PT. So, what did I pick? Can you remember?
You picked FIFA International Soccer on 3DO.
I mean, that's such a better choice. I mean, it's got so much more to it than just I wanted a game, but I'm sad because they didn't make it. Right? That's the argument for that one, right? Kelsey's had some good arguments, but that one, no. My one, couldn't afford the console. Probably didn't want to buy the console because it's destined to fail, but the game looked amazing. It was always on TV, and it was like, it was the thing I wanted, but I knew I was never going to get it. And it was just that kind of thing where it was just never going to happen. It was just always destined to be sad. Whereas the other choices just weren't that level of sort of insight into childhood.
What I liked about that is because the combination of FIFA and the 3DO, that's like Trip Hawkins' Follies squared, isn't it? I mean, FIFA's not quite a folly, but you know what I mean. And Trip Hawkins is a brilliant industry sort of character, and that's why I like that episode, because like on another thing I worked on before that, we ended up interviewing him about like his role in the history of video games, and of course Trip Hawkins basically believes that he invented video games as a modern concept.
Sounds like you're really pro that choice. of the FIFA on the 3DO, but still.
All I'm saying is I think it's a really good choice, and I think it's a really FIFA on the 3DO is really interesting because it's a very early example of a 3D soccer game, isn't it? And it's very much a harbinger of things very much an indicator of where things were going. It's just interesting, Tom. But I think Silent Hills is the most interesting pick out of that episode because it was relatively recent and
disagree.
Made us feel like we were about 500 years old. Right, episode 8. Let's batter through a couple of these because otherwise we'll be here for about 500 years. Episode 8, the best game that journos love, but most people think is a bit naff. This was another attempt from you to get Quantum Break-In, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean that should have won.
Oh no! Alex tried to get Quantum Break-In. Yeah, you tried to put Yakuza 6 in, which is
I was going for the anger. Like, this is the most outrageous option possible. Deathloop was a good choice, I think. Although Sharif talked about it for about 40 minutes, so at that point I was just like, just let him win. Just let him win.
Well, that was the first one of Sharif's 3 appearances, and he's won every single time. So he can also claim to be undefeated. And I think Deathloop was a good one because I think Deathloop is way more popular with the press than it is with the public.
Yeah.
All right, episode 9, best game with balls that isn't a sports game. You won that with Red Dead Redemption 2 on the grounds that it had horse testicles in it.
I just went like, what would Jim find amusing?
And you absolutely had me nailed there, to be fair.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at that. I want to have a look and see what other people. It's just really handy that you did the write-ups for these, Tom. Thank you.
Yeah.
Conker's bad for now. Actually, you know what's funny? Connor tried to play this one straight with Lethal League, I think. And sadly didn't get anywhere with that. You and Alex both tried to go for this strategy of appealing to my puerile sense of humor, but Alex went too puerile and you pitched it just right.
Yeah.
So Conker's Bad Fur Day is like, Conker's Bad Fur Day is like American Pie, and Red Dead Redemption 2's horse balls are like Bottom. It's all puerile, but Bottom has a bit of class to it, and I think you pitched it exactly right. Sharif then won again in episode 10, best game that is really bad. Sharif won with Earth Defense Force, which I don't think anyone can argue with, really.
That's a good one. Yeah, I can't remember what I picked. No memory at all of that.
Yeah, some of these episodes I actually just don't remember recording at all. You picked Formula 1 1996.
Did I?
Yeah.
That's the next one. That was the next one.
Oh, no, that is the next one. I've clicked on the wrong thing here.
I mean, Earth Defense Force definitely, I think, should have won because it is the classic.
Earth Defense Force. Operation Wolf, that's what you picked on the Master System.
I remember now. It was all this nonsense about how, it is a terrible game. And everyone was like, oh, you should have got a gun. You should have got a gun. No. Even with that, and I thought about this for a long time afterwards because it really bothered me, right? Even with a gun, the port is not good on the Master System because in the arcade, you had big characters that were you could shoot because they were big. On the Master System, they were small. Therefore, not as good game to play, but I still played it a lot because I got it as a kid. And it was like, when you're a kid and you get stuff, you just play it, right? Because you don't have any other choice. Unless you're a modern child where you just go, oh, I don't want to play that now, and pick another one of the 200 games on Game Pass. So
you sound almost better about that. Children should have to suffer the same way we did with
two games a year maximum.
Yeah, 2 games maximum.
And you must play them through at least 6 times each.
Yeah, you have to like, I don't know how many times I completed Streets of Rage just because it was the only fucking game I had on the Mega Drive for you. Anyway, so moving on to, I've already revealed this one accidentally, episode 11, the best game that you were ridiculously hyped for as a teen, and you won with Formula 1 1996.
Yeah, it's quite sad, isn't it, really? But, I mean, it's just the fact that I was actually a teen at that point, because in my mind, it's like I was like a small child when this came out. Yeah. But I was at least 13, maybe 14, I can't remember.
This is one of the reasons why you won, is that I couldn't accept. Alex tried to get with Dead Rising, which was a 360 game, and I just couldn't accept that, like, I couldn't accept that Dead Rising was acceptable in that category because it meant that I was really old. And then Kelsey tried to win with Resident Evil 7, a game that I worked on in my 30s. So I was like, I can't deal with that. I feel about 10 million years old. Once again, you won because of my complex about death. And then the next one, episode 12, best game that you hated for a very specific reason. Alex won with From Russia with Love, and it was a very poignant reason why he didn't like it, because it was one of Sean Connery's last ever acting gigs, and the last time he would ever play the character that made him famous, but it was terrible. And as Alex pointed out, they could have just got a sound alike and it would have been a lot better. So a very sad end to his career,
I can't remember
really.
why I picked a tool for that. I'm sure it was a really good choice, though.
No, I think it was rubbish. You picked Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, there we go. Brilliant choice. It's obviously, even though I don't agree with it, everyone else thinks it's a great game, right? I mean, even Alex would argue that it was a great game. If we're talking about the best game, From Russia with Love or Final Fantasy VII, which one has the legacy of being a great game?
Final Fantasy, yeah, but you yourself believe it's a shit game. Also, Final Fantasy VII is not a clever choice. It's just an argumentative one. It's just designed to upset people.
It's a game. I didn't even go with the obvious reason, which is they pretended it was this amazing looking thing with all this FMV, and then you play it and it looks like dog shit, and you wander around like a 2-polygon 3D world. Yeah. All
right. Fair enough. Yeah. All right. Now maybe actually, yeah. I mean, look, if we were able to revise them, I might actually, based on what you just said, I might revise that one. Yeah. But we can't because it's set in stone now. Episode 13, best game that was called a clone of another game. James Bilcliffe, I think this was his first won this with Untold Legends Brotherhood of the Blade, which is a forgotten Diablo clone on PSP.
This is just, what?
I like the strength of his pitch.
I think I tweeted angry about this probably a couple of times a day for the following week, because it was just unbelievable that it's such a bad game. It's not even a good Diablo clone. It isn't. It's just like, it's hard. It's just about okay because it was on a PSP, right? It wasn't even like...
Didn't you give it like 5 out of 10 on Video Gamer or something?
I mean, I don't know. It's like, it's not a good game. It's one of these games you play because you've got a new console. You're like, oh, that looks all right, and I want to get something else because I've played the only other good game that came out. I'm going to get this, and it's just a bit naff. I'm pretty sure everyone else had better choices than this.
You had Axiom Verge, and Alex had more. Alex had Mortal Kombat, which actually, I think maybe I was trying to be a smart ass with this one, but clearly. I actually do think I think Mortal Kombat's got to be a better choice than Untold Legends, right?
I mean, Axiom Verge is like one of the best Metroid clones. Like, it's literally like, it's a brilliant game, and it is a Metroid clone, right? And it is it's actually quite shocking that it's been put below Untold Legends Brotherhood of the Blade.
That's why it's funny. Like, sometimes we just do things because they're funny. Episode 14, best game you'd fire into space to prove the Earth isn't worth saving. Now, this episode sticks in my mind as one where Alex brought up a choice. Like, Alex is a bit of a weeb, and he knows about a lot of stuff that comes out of Japan that is problematic, right? And he wasn't advocating for it as a good game, quite the opposite, but he was basically, his entire argument was to do with how aliens would find this horrific and want to simply nuke us from orbit. Connor ended up winning this one. This was Connor's one and only win. Where he won with a David Cage game, and I remember shouting at him at the end of the episode to say, like, I can't believe that circumstances have led me to choose a David Cage game to go into our pantheon of best games ever, because that's a political choice, isn't it? If there ever was one. I couldn't bring myself to put Roblox in there because it's basically a a sweatshop for.
I know, but I mean, as an example of like what terrible shit kids like.
Yeah.
I mean, Detroit Become Human has massive problems, right? Like it is a good choice. Like Connor generally picks some pretty bad games for this. Sometimes it seems he barely understands the concept of the podcast, but this was a good choice from him.
I love Connor getting it absolutely tight. All right, best game with a wedding in it. You were raging about this because we did this topic because I'd quite recently got married. Kelsey picked Stardew Valley, which is a lovely, wholesome game in which you can have lovely, wholesome marriages with NPCs in it, and you picked fucking Mario, which is less about a wedding and more about an elaborate kidnap.
But it's still a wedding.
It's not.
It is. There is a wedding. If you go to a wedding, but you're there and there's like a ceremony, you've still gone to a wedding, even if it doesn't actually finish.
Was this also one where James Batchelor sided with you?
Yeah, I think so. But I've had this one. I definitely had messages about.
Right? I know you had messages about that one.
Multiple people. I
saw a couple of people basically dive in to insist that despite the fact that it was a sham wedding and basically a kidnapping in wedding costume, it's still counted as a wedding. Yeah. And I simply don't agree. Episode 16, the best game that uses FMV. The best FMV game. The way you've written the title on that one, Tom, is ridiculous, but basically the best FMV game from the 90s.
Yes.
No,
not
from the 90s.
I think I wrote it exactly correctly because it wasn't an FMV game. It was a game that uses FMV.
Best game that uses that FMV that was all the rage in the 90s.
I was trying to be like talking like cool kids talk.
It's an awful sentence, Tom. It's terrible.
Again, Kelsey, let's just pick the most popular game of the moment, right? And then she wins.
Well, Immortality had come out that week, and that's kind of what inspired the topic. But she is correct in that, I mean, Immortality is probably the best FMV game of all time.
Yeah, but I mean...
apart from Under the Killing Moon.
Very little effort was put into that choice. And
it doesn't matter. We don't give points.
Effort. I make massive effort every week to pick brilliant choices.
VG247's is not a meritocracy.
I make brilliant choices that take me a lot of time. I don't just go, what came out this week, and pick it. I went back through all the games I've ever played and thought, which ones have FMV? I wrote a list of them all. Yeah. I whittled them down to the ones that are most interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah? So that's how I made my choice.
Realms of the Haunting's not as interesting as Immortality.
It's a much more interesting game.
No, it's not.
It's a mixture, point and click, first person FMV game.
That just makes it complicated. It doesn't make it interesting.
It's got puzzles that are almost impossible to solve. It's brilliant.
Well, Immortality has got 3 film setups that Sam Barlow managed to make 3 entirely realistic looking films. Like, if you saw clips from those films out of context, you could quite easily be duped into thinking that those were real films from the time periods that they were purporting to be.
What kind of films? This is going to sound mean, right? I've not played Immortality. I do want to play it. But what if they're on a TV? If they're on like a streaming service now? Yeah. What would they be on? Would they be on like Pluto? They'd be on like the kind of stuff that Amazon Prime ads that you don't ever see. That's just there, and it's like, they've added some 8 random films about Christmas. I mean, look,
particularly that one about mad nuns. That looked. I mean, there's a lot of films from the 70s about raging nuns, right? And just sort of like, Catholicism and the horror thereof in general. And those films have a very distinct look about them, which that game absolutely nails. And I think, and also like straight to video sort of sci-fi channel horror stuff that is basically a fucking pilot that went nowhere. Obviously had an entire team of people doing it. That game nails the look of that. And also the other thing that I can't remember was, I remember being pretty good. Listen, no time for that. Episode 17, the best Assassin's Creed game that isn't Assassin's Creed game, and you can't pick Ghost of Tsushima, which I think is a brilliant topic, and you entirely disagreed.
It's a decent topic. I think again here, right? So my choice was really kind of drilling into what made Assassin's Creed a big deal, right? It was looking at the free running parkour angle of it, right?
That's not what made Assassin's Creed a big deal.
Everyone was talking about parkour and the free running, and everyone was doing videos about it, and it's like, oh yeah, that's the best. And look at the way he jumps across all the stuff really smoothly. Oh, he's jumping between things, swinging under door things, and
that's
like,
about 20% of the appeal of Assassin's Creed.
And everyone was like, wow. So that's why I picked Mirror's Edge, because it was like taking that but making it a very different game that still had the core free running nature to it. So I think we can agree that was the better choice than Sly 2 Band of Thieves.
I absolutely don't agree whatsoever. I think Alex's choice, The Saboteur, is much closer to the ideals of an Assassin's Creed game, and much closer to the things that make Assassin's Creed the juggernaut that it is. It has a historical setting. Mirror's Edge isn't even open world, Tom.
I had messages, right, from the developers of Assassin's Creed, and they were like, actually, Tom, yes, I've listened to this podcast, and we do, even though it's made by EA, who are Mortal Enemies, we believe that Mirror's Edge is a spiritual successor to Assassin's Creed.
Is that true?
No.
Well, exactly. But James won this with Sly 2 Band of Thieves, which I've never played, but the way he described it, in terms of it's globe hopping. You've got a bunch of cities in it that are sort of pastiches of real locations. So you've got that kind of digital tourism element. It's stealthy. Sly is a parkour master. You've got mythical clockwork parts, which are MacGuffins, which are very similar to Pieces of Eden within the plot. And I thought it was just such a brilliant left field pick that I had to go for.
It was a good choice. Yeah, and it felt like James came with about 8 sheets of A4 of notes.
Yeah, he did go on a bit, didn't he?
And I was like, fine. I literally picked the first thing I could think of, and you've done research, so fair enough.
Yeah, but the next one you won because you picked Bug Snacks for the best game you thought was one genre that turned out to be another.
Yeah,
I don't think we need to go into detail on that one because I mean it's pretty. Alex picked Brutal Legend, which is probably the most obvious poster child for this phenomenon, and Connor picked a fighting game for perverts.
He just accidentally bought a game where it was just looking at women in bikinis, right? That was it.
Yeah, I mean, Bug Snacks is such a wonderful kind of juxtaposition between cutesy sort of Pokemon style adventure game, a Nintendo style adventure game, and actually just full on body horror. I think it's brilliant. Episode 19, the best game with an acronized name like FIFA that isn't FIFA. You weren't in this.
I wasn't on this. I came up with a topic.
You came up with a topic. I
couldn't make it because of various horrendous hospital issues going on. Yeah. And I was like, just do it without me, please. Even though I would have won had I been on, I sacrificed it to know that the podcast.
What would your pick have been for this, by the way?
I was going to go for CSGO.
CSGO?
Yeah, Counter-Strike Go. Global Operations, what it's called. Counter-Strike is pretty much...
You would have lost?
No.
Yeah.
Counter-Strike is one of the best games ever made.
Because CSGO is half an initialism. It's not a proper acronym, is it?
It is.
The Go bit is an acronym.
Counter-Strike, yes, it is. It's called it stands for I'm Googling it now. So you're going to hear typing Global Offensive. Counter-Strike Global Offensive.
Yeah, Global Offensive makes the word go.
Yeah,
which you could argue is an acronym. But Counter-Strike, that's an initialism. It's not an acronym.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
which is the entire point of Sharif's argument, where James came up with DDR, Dance Dance Revolution, Alex came up with SSX Tricky, and Sharif pointed out that those are not acronyms, they're initialisms, and he picked Fear, which was the only game that actually qualified, and therefore he won with it, despite the fact that Fear is
actually very good.
Yeah, it's a good game, to be fair.
I'd say that of those games, it is the best one. But also, is it
better than SSX Tricky? No, it definitely is. Isn't it? Yeah.
Fear is one of the best shooters ever.
I was going to try and be clever there and claim that Sharif won entirely on the technicality, but he didn't actually win on the technicality. The technicality ensured the win, but he did also pick the best game that week. So, and by the sounds of it, you would have lost as well. So, episode 20, best game you played on your phone. You were upset about this because you picked basically an American version of the one that Alex won.
I picked the British version.
Oh, the British version of the...
The problem with this was, right, so Retro Bowl won, even though nobody outside of Alex plays American football games. Most people think they're boring. The sport is boring, right? I picked a football soccer game. The reason Alex won this is because of his little story about how he went on a jolly
and
when he shouldn't have. When he shouldn't have, it was irresponsible to go.
And this is the thing that that James and his wife Izzy were talking about, right? About how I apparently always go for the most sentimental story, and I think that this might have been the one where everyone twigged that because I was so taken with his story. But now that you point it out, it is a story about how Alex and a bunch of his mates irresponsibly went to Warsaw.
One of his mates was his partner was expecting a baby.
I mean, that's just... I mean, the height of... I mean, that's irresponsibility squared, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. I don't want to judge this friend of Alex's, but it's a terrible thing to do.
And by picking Alex's pick for that episode, I was essentially endorsing that terrible behaviour. Right? So, you know what? Looking back, actually, given that the games are very, very similar and yours didn't involve a story about... essentially endangering yourselves and others by going on a jolly to Poland at the outbreak of a global pandemic. I should probably have picked yours, but it was funny when you lost, in my defense. Episode 21, the best dead game you'd buy a console for if it came back. Alex won that with Time Crisis on the grounds that light gun games just don't work anymore, which I found quite a compelling argument. You tried to get Ridge Racer in for that one.
I think Ridge Racer is a more beloved franchise.
I don't think that's true at all. I think you're talking
Time
rubbish.
Crisis, if it comes back, it's coming with all the hassle of the gun and the stuff to clip on the TV and all this other stuff. I know there's like some mate that lives down the road from Alex who makes something and you can buy it on Kickstarter or something, and it's got like a special gun that works, but that isn't like
special gun.
It's just got a special gun, right? I know that's funny for you.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
It's just Ridge Racer should have won.
I disagree. No, I think I stand by my pick on this one. And
the thumbnail you made for this, Jim. Did it have Time Crisis on it or Ridge Racer?
I think it had Ridge Racer.
All right, I wonder why that was.
It had Ridge Racer with the caption "Dead Game," and it got the most views on YouTube that I think any of the podcasts have had. Yeah. Probably because people were incensed by the idea that Ridge Racer is never coming back. So actually, you might be right there in retrospect.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Connor made a really good pitch for Def Jam in this one, but sadly didn't win because Connor always gets robbed on these things. Episode 22, the best game about gods that isn't God of War. You were raging about this because Kelsey won it with The Sims 4, which I thought her pick was brilliant because the Kelsey's pitch was that in The Sims 4, you, the player, is God, and I thought that was fantastic.
I think you massively misunderstood the topic.
No, I didn't. I absolutely didn't.
It's not a game about gods, is it?
No.
Sims 4 is not about gods. You can say you might be a god because you are controlling them, but it isn't about
It is about gods because it's about the
characters. It's about
your choices as a player in guiding these little computer people.
Black and White, which with Alex picked, which I don't think you should have won, but it is entirely about gods and the idea of a god,
but
and
in
how
God
becomes worshipped. It's such a better choice.
But in Alex's pick, the player is also a god. It's the same. It's the same thing. It's just not. It's just more explicit about the idea.
I think as much as The Sims 4 is a good game, I actually think Alex probably should have won.
Well, I disagree. I still think The Sims 4 is the most brilliantly left field choice for that one. I think The Sims 4 was the intellectual choice for that one. You tried to win that with Immortals Phoenix Rising, Tom, which the less said about that, the better.
I thought you liked Assassin's Creed.
I do like Assassin's Creed.
Game, a bit like Assassin's Creed, but more fun.
Well, you're not going to win with that sort of chat, are you? All right. Now, the next one is a slightly controversial one because it's the live special that we did at EGX, right? And I would say as well, so what we have here is we have an episode with two winners because technically the audience won, a lad in the audience won with Celeste because the topic was the best game where you get to eat pie. And everyone in the room agreed that Celeste was the best choice that anyone in the room came up with. Now, the lad who picked that, I've tried to get in touch with his dad, I think, and I don't know. I think I might have written down the email address wrong or something. So, please, there is there would be a prize waiting for you. So please get in touch if this was you.
And somehow prove it's you. I don't know how we're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, just tweet us and we'll figure it out, right? So anyway, but yeah, so the audience won with Celeste and Alex won the panel with Dead Rising, right? And it was, I think, not the first time or the last time he would try to win with Dead Rising. Now, the controversy is whether or not this counts towards Alex's total. I say it does because I say in the episode that for the purposes of the panel, Alex has won. And I made that very clear, Tom.
It's not a numbered episode.
It doesn't matter. Does it matter?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter because it's a special.
Had we not published this, because there was a time when we didn't have the files and it didn't exist, essentially, in terms of a recording, would it have counted then?
Had we not published it?
Yeah.
It wouldn't have counted had we not published it.
Yeah,
no.
So what difference does it make now we've published it?
Well, the difference is that we've published it.
No.
So now
it's
it counts.
Just a special episode that we were quite happy to throw away.
We were quite happy to throw away.
I was like, just don't worry about it.
Me and Connor spent weeks getting a hold of it.
It's fine. Don't worry about it. Just don't. I think Celeste is the winner. Take Alex off a point.
Me and Connor spent weeks getting this episode published. Weeks of our time.
Great use of time.
Yeah. So episode 23, the best 6 out of 10. That's better than The Last of Us. You won that episode with Vanquish. Don't need to go into that.
Good choice. Also, there's a lot of hate for Last of Us in that episode, which I thought was unwarranted.
I thought it's entirely warranted. Because no, actually, look, I really like The Last of Us, but it's really funny to give it a kick in because people get annoyed with you, and we get complaints, which are always fun to read. Episode 20, we're getting into the most recent ones now, so let's just back through, right? Episode 24, the best game based on a book that nobody who played it has actually read, and Alex won that with Parasite Eve. Yeah, you were also annoyed about this one.
It's just not a very. I don't think Parasite Eve is that good, right? Also, the book side of it, like Jurassic Park, is so much more of a big deal than whatever book Parasite Eve was based on. And it worked because Kelsey didn't even realise that the film was based on a book. So
but that's because Kelsey is 15 years younger than any of us.
Kelsey wasn't born when this film came out. That's just
a factor of like time. That's not.
But that still backs up my point that it's like people haven't actually read it. I bet people have played.
Anyone who was remotely like sentient in the 90s is aware that Michael Crichton wrote the book that Jurassic Park is based on.
Did they read it? I bet they didn't.
No, nobody's read that book.
Nobody actually read. That's the whole point.
Yeah, but how many people have read the book that Parasite Eve was based on?
Only people that want to seem smart asses.
Yeah. Well, I mean, nobody's read that book, let's be honest, right? And Kelsey's pick was the Bible via the Binding of Isaac.
That was a better choice than Parasite Eve.
I think it was a really clever choice, but like it fell down on the basis that like quite a lot of people have probably read the Bible, to be fair.
Yeah, I hope none of the team listen to this podcast, because I'm just basically saying that they're all shit.
I hope Alex doesn't listen to it when we spent 5 minutes calling him an irresponsible and an irresponsible person who doesn't take global pandemics seriously. Because in fairness to him, he does. Episode 25. Now, this is my favourite episode we've ever recorded. The best game with a Welsh actor in it. And who won that again?
I was robbed. I was so robbed again.
Alex won that again with Elden Ring.
What about that? What about the zoo game that I picked that had
Planet Zoo that you can't remember the name of?
The one that had the really popular Welsh zookeeper in it.
And you admitted in the episode that you hadn't even encountered that character in the game.
No,
I just read on a Wikipedia that
yes.
Yeah. Well, I felt Connor was robbed on this one as well. Not robbed, but I think Alex legitimately won with Elden Ring. But
the problem with Connor's bit is that he just went on and on about Game of Thrones, right? It was just constant. I was confused about what was Game of Thrones and what was in. Yeah,
but that's because you zoned out and started answering emails or something in the middle of the podcast while we were talking about it. And then you spaced out and then came back 5 minutes later when we were no longer talking about Total War Warhammer, but we're talking about the television show Game of Thrones. Yeah. And you thought that there was a bit in Total War Warhammer where a guy's knob gets cut off and we had to...
This podcast is meant to be lean, right? And I just don't expect people to go off on random tangents about TV shows. We have enough with Doctor Who.
This episode isn't lean. It's 51 minutes already. Right. And in that spirit, let's move on to the last episode, episode 26, the best game that crashed at the worst possible time. Now, James, as we discussed in the episode, initially tried to be clever about this one, and he messaged me saying I'm thinking of maybe picking Cyberpunk 2077 because
I can't believe he tried to get like an idea of what you thought beforehand.
He was like, because that crashed like the stock price of CD Projekt Red, and or just flopped when it came out, and you know, like, I didn't reveal to him whether or not I would have accepted it, but I probably wouldn't have, to be fair. But eventually he won with RuneScape on the grounds that it crashed and wiped his progress once.
I think, actually, I mean, I agree that my choice was terrible. And I think I said that up front. Yeah. I made a bad mistake there.
Mech Assault
but
2.
Actually, like, Alex and James both had good choices. James was a better story, I thought. But then thinking about it, Alex's had like that sense that, I don't know, it felt more like he was really working towards this thing that he really wanted, and then it just all fell apart. I mean, James, and the problem with James is that it was RuneScape, right? Which I remember seeing. I never played it because it just looked so
terrible. It looked, I mean, I played it back in the day as well, like very briefly, and it just looked like it's untextured sort of like student game prototype rubbish. It was horrible. Anyway, but so
I'd have probably given it to Alex, to be fair. But
I mean, you didn't endow yourself with the power to pick the winners. You endowed me with that, so you know. We've been threatening this for a while, but we have tallied up the scores because this podcast is a competition within the staff of the website. I'm actually quite glad that I never have to pick anything for these things. Maybe we should change that up next year. Maybe we should do a season 2 where someone else gets to take the chair and then I have to become a competitor. What would you say to that?
I say hosting is probably more effort than I'm willing to do.
All right. Well, I'll just... All right, fine. I'll just carry on then. All right. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what I would pick for any of these, to be honest. I always sort of, when we come up with the topics, I'll always look at them and think every single week, I'm really glad that I don't have to play this game. I just have to adjudicate. Right, so let's go through the
So
scores.
Alex on this has got 9, right? But I think
Yes.
we've already established that the live show doesn't count. So that's 8.
No, we haven't established that. The live show absolutely does count because I say in the live show that this counts.
But that's 8. And then
No,
you take
Alex
off
has
the
gone.
1
Alex
point.
is on 9.
There was that other one that you agreed basically I should have won.
Yeah, but I also said that we cannot retroactively change the score.
So in reality, Alex is on probably 7 at best.
No, Alex is on 9.
And
Alex
that
is
puts
on 9.
me, if I get the win, currently I'm on 5, but if I get that other win, that pushes me up to 6, which is clearly in second then. And it's quite close, 7 to 6.
Except that's absolutely not what's happened remotely. And Alex is on 9 and you're on joint 5 with Kelsey.
Yeah, I mean, and to put that into more context, I've been on every episode but 1. Kelsey's been in like 5 or 6 episodes or something.
Yeah.
And has won 5 of them.
Yeah.
So
what you're saying is that Kelsey actually deserves to be in second place rather than...
That is what I'm saying. But in the actual re-scored system, I would still be clearly second.
Right, but we've also established that none of what you said to try and alter the league table actually counts. And Alex is on 9 and you're on 5 and Kelsey's on 5.
Yeah.
And in fact, Kelsey has a much more... It is much more difficult for Kelsey to get to 5 than it is for you.
Yes.
So
I mean, and
I would say
Sharif's only been on 3, right?
Yeah, and he's won every time.
Yeah.
So he's joint third with James, who has been on more often and lost, I think, as many times as he's won.
But also has some of the worst wins. I
mean, James has the best shit post wins imaginable. Fucking Sly 2 and RuneScape.
Yeah.
What was I thinking?
What? That's not even the worst of it, is it? Untold Legends.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, as he said in the last episode, he has won with some real shit. So you got to respect it. You got to respect it to win not only 3 times, but also to have won with the absolute fucking slop that he has come out. Rummaged around the drawers for. Sharif just stone cold every single time. He does his research, knows his shit, always has an argument in the back pocket to play gotcha. That time that he won because everyone else picked an initialism instead of an acronym is one of the best moments on the podcast ever. And we just had to carry on. We just had to carry on listening to Alex and James go on and on about whatever, knowing everyone knew that they'd already lost. And it was just, you could feel in the room that it was just a valiant effort on their part for no good reason. One of the best episodes we've ever done. Connor, Connor has been on this show like 15 times and won precisely once. And I feel like Connor has picked a lot of good games, actually. And Connor always comes up with really good and interesting choices, like, Def Jam. And I do actually think his story with Dead or Alive was really good. But it just always seems to end up getting outplayed by Alex. And I think it's such a shame that Connor's like right at the bottom of the league table, joint number 1 with Dom, who has been on the podcast precisely once.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good for Connor, is it? I think he's got to stop. He's got to stop thinking like he's got to go more broad with his choices. I think.
Well, according to James, he has to start coming up with sentimental stories.
Yeah, I mean, he's got to go. He's got to do one of the two. Like, I think just picking fighting games and weird sports games. That
he needs to invent some sort of weird timeline where he was like cleaning pubs as a 6-year-old.
Yeah, that doesn't actually help me that much, then, does it?
No, that's true. I mean, you are only third.
Yeah, I just as a little sneak peek into the future. I think I'm going to win the next 2 podcasts.
Is that true?
Yeah.
On what grounds?
I think I've just got the best choices. I mean,
I don't think you have.
I think I have.
I'm bearing in mind I'm the only person who knows what the choices are for the next 2.
We'll see, won't we? We'll see.
I mean, you're not going to win now purely based on that interaction.
Well, that would just be a perfect example of how this is an unfairly judged show. Just before we wrap up, I think we should just say leave a review. Write a review. Please leave a review. If you want to review other podcasts, fine. Just don't score them as highly. Yeah. Or leave as many nice words. Yeah. I mean, if you put in things, if you could just write the words Tom and Jim are brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Give them pay rises. They carry the whole podcast.
Yeah.
Ambivalent about Alex, James, Kelsey, Connor, etc.
Yeah. I mean, I think Alex does a lot of work to keep this podcast afloat, to be fair. But I mean, given that he's won 9 times.
I just think in terms of the my personal happiness, just do what I said.
Okay, that's fine. Are we allowed to ask people to review GameWank as well while they're at it? No, you sure?
No,
I'm not allowed to do that.
No one knows what that is. You've said it now. That's all you're getting. You've mentioned it. They can Google it. I assume it's on there somewhere.
Don't Google GameWank. Right, okay, well, that's lovely. And I think I'm really looking forward to the next 6 months. I want to get to 100 episodes so we can have a big 100th episode. We'll do
a live show at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, probably called like the Google Hub or something then.
Yeah.
It's got, I don't know, like 60,000 capacity or something.
Yeah. Of which we'll have about 300 people in it, just dotted around, social distancing. I'm really excited about that. Actually, I'm really excited about this getting to 100 episodes and seeing what absolute nonsense we are calling the best games of all time, because it's quite a range. We've got all the way from RuneScape to Silent Hills, which is a game that doesn't exist. So anyway, thanks very much. Please leave a review, 5-star review. Please leave a 5-star review.
Thanks.
Like I said, you will find out in this here podcast.
If you enjoyed the show, please give us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. It really helps us get the word out. We're not just a podcast, of course. If you'd like to hear more from the team, then check out VG247.com for our fantastic news coverage, features, reviews, and game guides. Thank you so much for listening. Goodbye.